Okay, so let's move on to this. So Yoshinobu Yamamoto had a way more encouraging start in his last outing than he did in his first in South Korea. Pitching against the Cardinals in this game, 5 innings, 2 hits. He gave up no earned runs, 5 strikeouts through those 5 innings. This was a much better start compared to what he did in South Korea, where his start only lasted 1 inning. He had given up 3 or 4, I think 4 earned runs in his start in South Korea against San Diego. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that they're expecting from him. I think the question really I want to ask is, like, there were a lot of questions going into what his career was going to look like from the beginning, right? And especially after what his first start looked like, it had looked like for a second that Yamamoto was going to come here. The stuff wasn't going to translate, right? Because his fastball was, I mean, he doesn't throw 100. He throws like 95, 96, right? Which, again, it's velocity, but it's, if you don't have that late life, 95, 96 is very, very hittable in the major leagues, right? Yamamoto's fastball was pretty flat. He wasn't hitting the strike zone as he's accustomed to doing. So a lot of people were saying, a lot of these Japanese pitchers, traditionally what they do when they come over to the United States is that they come here and they throw their breaking balls, right? Because their fastball just doesn't, it's a different ball. It's a whole different game for Japanese pitchers when they come here, because the stuff just it just doesn't play the same as in the MPB. So that's what a lot of people were saying after his first start. Now, and again, the Cardinals, I don't know, are as good of a team as San Diego is, but that's still a lineup that I think has a lot of guys that can really hit. Arenado, Goldschmidt, Nolan Gorman, whoever
Jordan
else.
Walker.
Right, Jordan Walker as well, one of the up-and-coming players. But Yamamoto pitched much, much better. So what are you leaning on, right? Because I think you're kind of getting the tale of both stories here. He was paid $325 million for a reason, right? What is your opinion here on Yamamoto? Has your opinion changed? What are you feeling right now after 2 pretty much polar opposite starts to start his major league career?
Well, you got to remember, Mike, a lot of these Japanese guys who play professionally in the MPB, there's a lot of differences between MPB and MLB. Number one being the fields. The mound distance in the MPB is closer to home plate than it is in Major League Baseball. You also got to remember those NPB stadiums are smaller stadiums. They're all indoor stadiums. So, Yamamoto has an adjustment period. And I said the same thing when the Mets signed Kodai Senga last season. He may need a season to adjust. With that being said, everybody was ready to write this guy off after his first start. He couldn't make it out the first inning. His ERA was a 45.
Yeah.
He comes back and he's sharp in his second start. I don't know whether it's a case of the Padres are better than the Cardinals, but you also got to remember that first game was still, while those two teams were playing a regular season game in Korea, everybody else was still in spring training. Technically, it should have been a spring training game.
Yeah, right.
But also one thing, whether it's the London series or these games in these Asian countries, but a lot of the times when two teams in the MLB go and they play at a neutral site, it's offense galore. So people tend to forget that. There was a game in London a couple of years ago between the Yankees and the Red Sox. Each team had about 22 runs apiece or more. So people got to forget that games like that, yes, they count in the regular season, but those are more like exhibitions. Just like we don't judge anybody off of spring training, I think it's too early to judge Yamamoto. I still think he's going to have a successful rookie season, and barring that he doesn't get hurt, he may not win the Rookie of the Year, but he'll be in the mix for Rookie of the Year contention, I believe.
Yeah, well, I think right now for the National League, he's the clear favorite. I mean, and both me and Dalton felt that way a couple of weeks ago when we made those predictions. And you're right about those neutral site games being primarily offensive showcases because, I mean, listen, we can talk about all we want about how Yamamoto had a tough start in Seoul, but you got to keep in mind too, like Joe Musgrove is an established top of the rotation arm in Major League Baseball, right? And he has been for a few years now. Like Joe Musgrove has really turned into a really nice Major League pitcher. 2 2/3, 5 earned runs, 7 hits against the Dodgers in South Korea. So it wasn't like that game ended up being 15-11 final. Like, so there was something to be said about offensive output in South Korea. So yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think he's going to be fine, and I think most people that are saying, I'm a little worried, I don't know that there's really any warrant for that. Just simply because, like, look, I think generally speaking, and maybe sometimes not, but I think in this case, probably, Major League people know more than we do.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, guys that work, it wasn't like the Dodgers were the only team dumb enough to give him over $300 million. No. Most Major League teams, and good ones, well-run Major League teams that are in contention pretty consistently, right? The Dodgers, the Yankees, the Mets, the Phillies, St. Louis, like really good, well-run organizations were all willing to pay very serious money to Yoshinobu Yamamoto, which is why he got the biggest contract ever given to a pitcher in Major League history without throwing one single Major League pitch. So there is something to be said about that. Now, again, if we walk into, and Dalton said this a couple weeks ago, if we walk into August and his ERA is like a 6, then I think we're allowed to say, yeah, like he's 22 starts deep and he's got a 5 or a 6 ERA. I think people are then going to say, oh, that contract could age really, really poorly, right? But we're not there yet. He's 2 starts deep. He had a bad start in South Korea, but then he dominated in his second start. So listen, and I think you and I would both be lying, right? You said that earlier that the Mets hadn't done a single thing in the offseason, right? And I think part of that is because they were Yamamoto or bust. I was, listen, and you can tell me if I'm wrong. I don't want to speak for you, but I wanted Yamamoto more than anything in the world. Like, as a Yankee fan, I was refreshing Twitter. It was so unhealthy. I was refreshing Twitter over and over and over again just to catch that update within the first 20 seconds of it coming out. I was ready for Yamamoto to be a Yankee. I'm assuming you were the same way with the Mets because the things you heard about this guy were just unreal.
Actually, I wasn't.
No?
No, because look how many great big name free agents were out there this summer. We didn't need a Yamamoto as far as pitching wise. Blake Snell was available. Jordan Montgomery was available. And then again, all the other bats. Like I said, we got Martinez, but Bellinger was around. So Jorge Soler, who the Mets should have made an offer to, was around. Now he's going to be hitting bombs in McCovey Cove.
Yeah, it's a shame that Jorge Soler signed in San Francisco. Dalton was saying this the other day. But Jorge Soler, I think, is really suppressing his bat in Oracle Park. Don't you think? I mean, that is not a good hitter's ballpark. It just is not. Those gaps are deep.
They rob home runs and make them triples.
Oh, my gosh. Like you wouldn't believe. It's amazing how Barry Bonds hit so many home runs over there. Imagine how many he would have hit if he was playing at Yankee Stadium. The guy would have had 1,000, right? It's just unbelievable.
The gas is a wonderful thing.
That's right.